My friend, in this video, we're going to be making tech house drums in the style of HUGEL, and we're going to find out if we can do this in under 20 minutes using traditional referencing and a forbidden sampling technique. So this is a look inside of the Ableton project file that we'll be working on. And right here we have the reference track, which is Diplo and HUGEL song Stay High featuring Julia Church. And I've set it up so that the solo key here will turn on whenever I press the S key, so that when I press it right now, we are listening to the Diplo and HUGEL song right now. So this is now the reference track. So whenever I press S, I can flip between the reference track that we're hearing now and boom, the track that I've been working on. So this is important for a couple different reasons. One is that by using a reference track, I can pick samples that are most similar to the reference track. Second, I can set the levels while following the reference track so that it's mixed to a similar level. And then third is I actually went in and extracted the kick drum and some hi-hats from this reference track and used it in my version as well. And so this is what we'll be going over in the video. We'll give you a listen to the drums by itself. So this is the kind of tops, and then we also have the low bus with the kick drum added in as well. So all in all, this process took me about 20 to 25 minutes. I'll be explaining it in less than that. And also, if you do look at this entire project, you'll see that it's fully arranged, mixed, and mastered. And this whole process, finishing this entire song, took me about, I want to say, under 7 days, about 4 sessions over maybe 3 or 4 hours. And if finishing songs faster is something you'd also like help with, I've made a free ultimate song finishing toolkit, and it includes the 5-step song finishing ebook, as well as a collection of samples, presets, and Ableton racks that I've used on a bunch of almost every song that I've ever made, and it's how I'm able to finish songs so quickly. There's also a third extra special gift that you'll have to see for yourself. So just visit the link that's in the description or on screen now to grab all of that for free. And with that said, let's jump into this video. Alright. So now that we're back in the Ableton project file, let's dive right into creating these drums. So what you're listening to right now is the drum tracks that I built up, and then I'm going to be showing you how to create right now. So if we go ahead and flick between the reference tracks, so let's press S. This is the original Diplo and HUGEL song. So when we go back to the one that I've remade, you can hear it's quite similar. And so to help you create this as authentically as possible, what I'm going to do is mute everything. And we're going to start doing everything in the order that I actually developed these drums so that you can kind of follow along. So the first thing is we have this 4 on the floor kick. There's basically no processing going on here. The volume's even panned at 0. Basically what I did was I went into the reference track, so let's listen to that right now, and looked for a part in the song where there was just the drums. So you can hear in the outro there's just the drums playing. Another common place to look, and probably the first place you'll look, is the intro. But in this song, if you listen to the intro here, you can tell that paying attention to the kick in particular, you could tell a bunch of the lows has been taken out of the intro when compared to the outro. So this is the area that I chose to build the track around. So listening now to our kick, the way that I got this kick is a little bit of a trick that I found from a really cool producer named Dilby. And so what you do is you go into the reference track and you look for a kick. So like right about there. So we can just loop that and play it over and over. So that's the actual sound from the kick. Then what you do is you drag that onto 3 separate audio tracks. I'll show you exactly what that looks like. Just want to get the kick playing. It's nice to have some sound going. You put it onto 3 separate audio tracks like I've done here. And you have one for the high, one for the medium, one for the low. So you drag the exact same kick that you've grabbed from the sample into each one of these tracks. And then you apply a multi-blend compressor that looks a little bit like this. The multi-blend compressor looks like this. You would drag that on to say the high here. And you would solo the high frequency so that on the high track, just the highs are coming out. On the mids, what you would do is you'd have a multi-band compressor on that one as well, and you would solo the mids. And then lastly, you would do the same thing for the low, and you would then solo the low. Then what you can do is consolidate that, so then you can see what the information is for each and every single one for this kick drum for the lows, mediums, and high. And then you can adjust the length of the clip to sound good, basically. and then export that out into a final kick drum, which you can see right here, which then I then dragged into this clip kick track. So we have the 4 and the 4 playing here, follow the mouse, and then I just dragged this sample into the drum rack. So now we have this kick playing, and I can change it if I'd like to. If you'd like a more in-depth tutorial on that, definitely check out the Dilby stealing kicks tutorial. I don't want to go too in-depth because it's not my idea. But that's how the kick started. And once I layered in the kick, basically I would just switch between this kick track and the reference, trying to get the volumes right, because the volumes is about 80% of the battle here. So once the kick was created, the next thing that I built up was this top track. So what I did was I just found a sample on Splice, and nothing too crazy in terms of processing, but we are removing a ton of the lows, doing a little bit of one knob side chaining, and using a little bit of this one knob width plugin, just to kind of push it away from the center, get rid of a bunch of the lows, so we're mostly going to be using the kick and the elements that we place in here, so we're not using the tops for the majority of the drum track. It's just for kind of some extra texture. So that's the first one, kind of building the groove by adding a top track, then added another top track. This one's a little bit more progressive. It is called progressive, but this is what it sounds like on its own. Little bits of percussion and some hi-hats and almost shakers. So layered that on here. Again, removing a bunch of the lows, side chaining it, and adding some width, so then pushing it to the left and right channels instead of having it straight down the middle. And this is kind of just adding the vibe and a little bit of feeling to the track and getting a kind of groove, because the main elements are then going to come in here. We have this hi-hat, and there is a few different hi-hats playing. So what we have here is, if I were to just open this up, you can see that there are several different hi-hats playing. So I'm going to solo out this one in particular here. So if you can hear that. This sample here was just taken from the reference track. And the way I did it was just zoomed into this track and then found, like, say this kind of looks like a hi-hat. I would cut this out and then drag it into the drum rack over there. So that's an easy way to also steal some additional samples. If we listen to the rest of this track, of the hi-hat track, what I then did was, if we go into it, right here, we have at the top that sample from the actual track playing. Then it's reinforced with a different sample here. And there's a different hi-hat sample to have a bit more fullness to the hi-hat sound. And then I added an additional hi-hat to add a little skippy groove with the velocity turned down quite a bit. So that's the idea there. So stealing a bit of the sample, the hi-hat sample, and then also reinforcing it with some actual one-shot samples as well, with the plan there with the hi-hats. Then moving on. Oh, and then also I should say, particularly at this point, flicking back and forth to the reference and what we've been building to get the volumes and also to help decide on the sounds being selected. In terms of any other processing, there's a little bit of saturation going on here, and that's really about it. Next up, we have the clap. So in terms of the pattern, there's a clap playing on the 2 and 4, and then on the last 4 of this 2-bar phrase, there's an additional clap to add a little bit of emphasis. And so again, while building this out, the main thing was choosing the samples and setting the volumes while flicking back and forth to the reference, like this. Mine, reference, mine, listening to the claps, and using that to really guide the way. In terms of any processing, other than that, there's really just removing some lows, adding a bit of one knob saturation, and then using some of this one knob wider plugin to push everything to the left and right. Then we layered in this snare, which sounds like this. The MIDI is just on the 2 and 4 and the 2 and 4. In terms of the processing, really nothing going on here. So it really can be that simple. If you mostly focus on sound selection and reference the track that you want to sound like, and then also reference the volumes, that's the easiest way to really build up to get it sounding the same, maybe even louder and fuller in some instances too. Then other than that, I'm going to go to a part in the song where there's a little bit more going on, so we'll scooch it to over here. And there's also this open hi-hat that I added Not sure if we flick to the reference right now. I think there's some kind of open hi-hat, so I kind of use that as a reference there. In terms of the processing, there are 2 layered. One might be panned. Let's have a look if I did anything interesting with the panning. Yeah, so one of the samples is panned a little bit to the right, and the other one is, you can click here, go into the actual sampler device. This one is not. So one is just sampled, pushed a little bit to the right. In terms of the processing, we're moving a bunch of the lows, using a transient designer to tighten up the sustain so that it is a little bit tighter of a sound, and then a little bit of saturation and a little bit of one knob width. And then we also added in this Congo loop. Just found this on Splice and kind of just threw it in there, removed a bunch of the lows so that the kick's still shining through, a little bit of side chain so it's pumping and the kick again is shining through, a little bit of width to move it to the side, and then I added in the shaker. Very, very subtle here. Just a shaker loop that I like. Kind of sounds a little tribal to me. I like that. Removing a ton of the lows, a bit of side chain, and that's really about it. So we can hear here it sounds pretty full, and when compared to the reference, it's pretty close. So this is a pretty solid way that you can go ahead and build out your own drums in the style of HUGEL, and this is a really great way to go about creating any song, really. Following the reference track, super important. Volumes and sound selection is really going to be the strongest thing there. Hello again, my friend. Hopefully you found that video useful. If you'd like to follow along yourself with the 5-step song finishing checklist, there will be a link in the description below where you can get access to that completely for free, and it's going to help you finish your songs a lot faster and better than ever before. If you found this video useful, like and subscribe and all that good stuff, but really the best thing I can do for you is hook you up with that free checklist, so make sure you check that one. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video, my friend. Have a good one.